another episode of the NFL Network. And I know it's been a couple of weeks since I've done one of these, but not by choice. I've tried to get some of these out here, but just time constraints, things have just gotten in the way. I was going to do one last week before the Thursday night game, but plans got awry on because of Halloween. And I figure with everything that's going on right now in the last 24 hours, we need a break from all that. So, this is going to be going back to this is just going to do what I do best on here. I'm not going to talk about the election and all that type of stuff. I'm not going to cover that on this channel. I'm not going to. I'm like everybody else. I'm just pretty much sick and tired of it because of stuff like what happened yesterday. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So we're not going to bring that up here. We're going to keep this in check to what this show is about, and that is giving you my predictions for week number 10 as well as my power rankings. But before we get to all of those, there was a major thing that happened on Tuesday besides the elections, and that was, of course, the NFL trade deadline. And needless to say, it was very, very busy on that day. A lot of teams made some changes, made some not just changes, but trades over the last couple of weeks. And yesterday, in particular, was a pretty overall big week in terms of a big day in terms of trades in general. There was about 18 in total. So just gonna kind of run down through these pretty quickly. So let's just go ahead and take a look at some of the notable things that happened, and we'll start with the Baltimore Ravens, which took place a couple weeks ago. They traded for Deontay Johnson. They got a 2025 sixth-round draft pick from the Carolina Panthers, in which the Panthers received a 2025 fifth-round draft pick. So looking forward to seeing Deontay Johnson twice in the next month or so, because, of course, they got to play the Steelers. But I don't know what Carolina is doing, honestly. Like, Carolina is just so flustered right now and just have no idea what their future is right now. Even though they won this past week with Bryce Young getting his first divisional win, I think. This is not a actually. No, I think he won last year against Atlanta too, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, Deontay Johnson is now a Baltimore Raven. Carolina receives a fifth-round draft pick, and I don't know, like. It just felt like Carolina really wasn't going to do anything with it. And it just makes the Steelers kind of look like it's another one of those things where it's just like, nice job, Steelers. You just gave away somebody to a team that they pulled an Antonio Brown. Like, they pulled an Antonio Brown, and like they sent him to the Raiders. Never plays for the Raiders. Then he gets cut from them before the season begins. Then he goes to New England, and then eventually wins the Super Bowl with Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. It makes the Steelers look pretty bad in the long run, but Baltimore gets some help on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know if it's going to help all that much in general, but then again, he's probably going to have a field day when he plays the Steelers over the next couple of weeks. But that was the first of the major trades that happened. But even before that, obviously DeAndre Hopkins getting traded from Tennessee to Kansas City, which thanks for that, Titans. Yeah, everyone is saying thanks for that, Titans. And so far, it has worked out pretty well for the Kansas City Chiefs, so not much more to go off of that one. The Titans received a 2025 conditional fifth-round draft pick for him. Of course, Amari Cooper went to the Buffalo Bills, and a couple trades from the Cleveland Browns. I'm trying to find some of the newer ones here. Here we go. Zadarius Smith. This was actually first announced during the game for the Cleveland Browns against the Chargers on Sunday, but wasn't made official until Tuesday morning, and that was the fact that Zadarius Smith is going from Cleveland to the Detroit Lions. Browns also gave up a 7th-round draft pick in 2026, and the Browns received a 2025 5th-rounder and a 6th-rounder in 2026. And, the Lions needed help. Aiden Hutchinson's out for the season, so the Lions defense needed to bolster up and find a good replacement for him. They've done a pretty good job overall without him, but this gives them a much-needed boost in terms of the defense that they need to really get this team really into Super Bowl contention, which they really are right now. We'll delve more into that once we get to the actual games itself. Let's see. I want to get to the newer ones here. I'm on the NFL.com website, and they're just going through like the older ones that we kind of already knew for the last couple of weeks. Here we go. This was probably the most impressive thing about this trade deadline in particular, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers really went all in on their decisions. Like, the Steelers did what Jerry Jones wished he could have done with the Dallas Cowboys, because Steelers finally got their wide receiver number 2 with Mike Williams. They got him from the New York Jets. They only had to trade away a 5th-round draft pick to go get him, and so now the Steelers get that additional help they need on the wide receiver front, adding another weapon, and hopefully he'll have. And obviously, I hope he's going to have better success in Pittsburgh than he did with the Jets. But on top of that, they also made a trade for Preston Smith from the Green Bay Packers. They actually added to the defensive line, and it only cost them a 7th-round draft pick to do it. And when that happened, I was just like, "Whoa, okay, guys, now I see what you guys are doing here." But yeah, I thought that was pretty impressive. They were able to accomplish that in general, and hey, more power to them, man. But probably the most significant trade that happened on this day was, of course, Marshawn Lattimore leaving the New Orleans Saints to go to the Washington Commanders. The Commanders gave up a 3rd-round pick next year, a 4th-rounder, and a 6th-rounder to bring Marshawn Lattimore in. And they also gave the Saints a 5th-round pick next year for that. And like I said, with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Detroit Lions, you got to bolster up that defensive front. And it's clear that New Orleans is in crisis mode right now, just getting ready to blow everything up because they fired Dennis Allen. We'll get to that. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But yeah, the Saints needed to make some changes, and Washington needed some help in terms of bolstering that defensive front with a team that could be one of those sleepers in the playoffs. And Marshawn Lattimore's that guy right now, and the Commanders. I mean, he goes through a great situation there, and guess what? We're going to see both of them and the new Steelers this coming Sunday. So. Again, more on that later. Baron Browning going to the Arizona Cardinals after being traded from the Denver Broncos for a 6th-round draft pick. The Cardinals, they're turning into that team I thought they were going to be in the first. Is when the season began. They're that sleeper team that nobody really is counting on right now, but right now they're just barely leading the division right now in the NFC West because of how sloppy it is right now. So if the Cardinals can get going here, I mean, that could be a pretty good trade overall for the Denver Broncos to give up. Cincinnati added Khalil Herbert. They exchanged a 7th-round draft pick to the Bears to go get him because of the injury to Zach Moss. So now they have a running back in the backfield for them along with Chase Brown. The Vikings traded for Cam Robinson from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and as we saw on Sunday, played pretty good in that game against them. But Khalil Davis got traded from the Houston Texans to the San Francisco 49ers for a 2026 7th-round draft pick. And the 49ers, of course, about to get Christian McCaffrey up pretty soon. So a good pick on their front there. The last one I think is probably... Actually, no. Before I get to that one there, Ravens made one more trade on the last day of the deadline. Tre'Davious White coming over from the Los Angeles Rams to the Baltimore Ravens for a 2026 7th-round draft pick. And the Ravens threw in a 7th-round draft pick in 2027 for him. The defense for the Ravens is the weak link right now, and I don't think Tre'Davious White is really going to add much to it, but, do whatever you can to try to fix this, but I don't know. That doesn't seem like a really good trade in general, but let's just be honest here. The best trade overall that happened this week was Jerry Jones made a trade, and he said, all in, all in, all in, and here's their example of all in. We're going to trade a 4th-round draft pick next year to the Carolina Panthers to acquire the services of Jonathan Mingo. Not Adam Thielen, not Deontay Johnson, not Xavier Leggett. Jonathan Mingo. You know what Jonathan Mingo has done since he's gotten there? Absolutely nothing. Jerry Jones, what the hell is wrong with you, man? Like, what are you doing? Like even the biggest Dallas Cowboys fans are looking at this and going, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it makes no sense whatsoever why the Cowboys are doing this and why they still believe that they're going all in. Because Dak Prescott's out for several weeks, and, it's not looking good for you guys, but yet you made this trade. You gave up a 4th-round draft pick that you may end up regretting, and if this isn't the sign that they're getting rid of that Jerry Jones is going to be out of the Cowboys organization one way or another, like there's going to be like a thing where they're just like, hey man, you got to go. I mean, this is ridiculous, man. This is one of the worst trades of this entire deadline. But so those were the more significant ones that just happened in the last week. So yeah, mostly the biggest. I think the biggest winners overall were the Pittsburgh Steelers, were the Commanders, and Yeah, I think the Steelers and the Commanders, I think, really did the best job overall. I think I'll give credit for the Detroit Lions for finally getting some up on the defensive front, but I think Pittsburgh and Washington really are cementing themselves as a possible as the possible sleepers going into the second half of the season where they could make some noise. But then again, Pittsburgh has that rough schedule coming up. But we'll get to that in a little bit here. But let's get to, now that we're done talking about the trade deadline, let's go ahead and move into the power rankings for this week. And as you can see on this list, we have a new bottom of the barrel, and that is the New York Jets. And look, I don't care if they beat the Texans or, I'm sorry, the Jets. The Jets are not a good football team. Yeah, they beat the Texans, but let's be honest, they did not look that great. That their performance on last Thursday night was no indication that this team really is better with the team that they have right now. Yeah, they finally got Devontae Adams in the end zone. Yeah, they had a Garrett Wilson touchdown that everyone's calling one of the greatest catches of all time, when George Pickens literally did the same thing 3 nights ago, and that was not considered a touchdown. Like, I'm still baffled that's not like that. But as you can see by the list here, not many significant changes overall in here. You might be wondering, why is the Kansas City Chiefs out of the top 5 even though they're undefeated? Well, the Kansas City Chiefs they're winning games, but they're not doing it in the easiest they're not doing it in the best way possible. It's like that with the Ravens too, because the Ravens because the thing with the Chiefs right now is that I've said this before, that they start off relatively slow, and then this is the point where they're supposed to get better. But so far, the Chiefs really have not done a whole lot in general, they're currently, I feel like they're gonna be that team that was like last year with the Philadelphia Eagles, or a couple years ago with the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Arizona Cardinals, where they start off with this strong record, they're undefeated for a number of weeks, and then all of a sudden the second half of the season comes along, and then they're just not that same team that they were before, and they barely make it out of the first round of the playoffs, if they even get there in the first place. I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs make the playoffs, but because the division is so poorly put together, but at the same time, it's just like, this is not a confident Kansas City Chiefs team so far. I mean, we still have another half of the season to go, so maybe this can all change going forward. And I mean, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, they usually will find a way to win games, but they gotta be better at this, man. Because right now they are not looking like a team that looks like the back-to-back world champions right now. Even though they're undefeated, they're not looking like the same team they were before. So that's why they're just barely on the cusp of the top 5. Number 5, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just because I feel like the Steelers improved their positioning by the draft choices that they made. The trade choices that they made in Mike Williams and Preston Smith. Plus, come on, man. That second half of the schedule is so rough. I have to give them at least something, because I'm not confident where they go from here. But so just let them have this, okay? Just let me have them there this week. But number 4 on the list, I have the Buffalo Bills, which, I mean, the Buffalo Bills, the defense, the team overall is good. I mean, Josh Allen is definitely doing a lot better without having a guy like Stephon Diggs like last year. I mean, he's finding people to get the ball to. The team overall is doing relatively well, even though last week they had a thriller against the Miami Dolphins. They're still looking pretty good right now. Like, they're proving all the naysayers wrong that said their window was shutting down last year because of the loss to Kansas City in the playoffs. Right now they're looking pretty good, and I think that they can hold on to this and keep going here, because nobody else in their division is even close in this case. Neither is the number 3 team on the list, the Atlanta Falcons, who continue to impress the hell out of me, because wow, these guys are actually doing very, very well, considering that this is the Atlanta Falcons, and they are known for notoriously collapsing at the worst possible time. But they didn't sweep the knee. They didn't bow down to the Cowboys. They beat the Cowboys pretty convincingly. They swept the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, they have a really soft schedule coming up. This is a team that could easily be very much up in contention right now for one of the top spots in the NFC playoff picture. If not for the 2 teams that are in front of it, which are still the 2 teams that I've had in this list for several weeks now. Starting with number 2, the Washington Commanders. Even though they had a very easy win against the New York Giants, that technically did come close to being. It would have been interesting if the New York Giants actually were able to somehow win this game, but the Washington Commanders somehow survived. Wasn't the best game by Jaden Daniels overall, but they found a way to win that game. But no doubt about it, the best team in football right now is my number one team, and that's the Detroit Lions. I mean, going into Green Bay the way that they did, I mean, when one of your guys is wearing a shirt that says Green Bay sucks, that's bulletin board material for the Green Bay Packers. But they proved the shirt, and they proved that Green Bay did kind of suck, at least in that game, because Detroit just ran all over them. I mean, just keep in mind that the Detroit Lions have been getting bitch slapped by the Green Bay Packers for nearly 30 years before this recent stretch run, and it's just like, this is like the little brother finally growing up and able to beat the shit out of the big brother, because they walloped the Green Bay Packers and sent them back down a little bit off their pedestal. I still think the Green Bay Packers are good, but Detroit Lions, man, they really are proving to be one of those teams that should be contending highly for the Super Bowl this year. And it's one of those things where it's just like, it's boom or bust right now for the Lions. I think they have a strong team right now. I think they got better with the addition of Zadarius Smith to replace Aiden Hutchinson. They should be pretty good in this case. But will it be enough to win this week? That will be the interesting question that we will delve into next, as I delve into my weekly predictions for the week that is week number 10. So in the 2 weeks that I was away from this, I didn't do too bad. I got 22 out of 31. Yeah, 22 out of 31 correct. So 11 picks correct out of 16 in week 8, 11 out of 15 in week 9. But truth be told, in week 9, I did kind of cheat because I have 2 ties. And my rule is that if I had a tie, that mostly means that I have no idea which one of these bad teams is going to win. And there was 2 games in particular where I just said, fuck it, I'm going to go with a tie, and I'm going to give myself 2 extra points for that. So last week was kind of a stretch for me, so I did kind of cheat my own rules a little bit here. But overall, I'm not doing too bad. 9 weeks, only 2 of them have been really bad, and that was week 2 and week 3. But ever since then, not too bad overall. So what about week 10? Where do we go from here? Let's start with the Thursday night matchup. We've got the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Baltimore Ravens, who had a thriller earlier in the season where the Bengals and the Ravens kept it close. They went to overtime. Bengals had a chance to win it, but unfortunately they were starting a rookie punter, rookie long snapper, I should say, excuse me. But when they were about to kick the game-winning field goal in overtime, it went wide left. Or wide right, depending on which angle from your television you were watching it from. And of course, Derrick Henry did what Derrick Henry does best, ran the ball all the way down to near the 1-yard line. Justin Tucker kicked the field goal. Ravens win the game. So now we're heading to Baltimore, where, let's just be honest, if you are an away team and heading into Baltimore, just go ahead and knock yourself off. You're not going to do very well in that game. Of course, we saw that last week with the Denver Broncos, who have really fell down to earth since then. And, they showed a little bit of promise last week, but just couldn't handle the Ravens, man. Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, they're going to be the reasons why the Ravens are going to be very hard to beat in the regular season. Now, the postseason, it could be very different because the Ravens are notoriously known for choking in the postseason, but I do not expect things to change in this particular game for the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati, I mean, at this point, every game at this point is a must-win. I mean, right now they're sitting at 4-5, but they're going into a very hostile territory where Derrick Henry, the last time they played on a primetime game it was against the Buffalo Bills, and Derrick Henry ran all over the Buffalo Bills and just completely dismantled them. Now, the only thing that could help the Bengals in this is that the Ravens' defense has not been great. It's been that one weak link that's been holding them back, but nevertheless, they're still winning games. But if Joe Burrow can have a repeat performance of what he did last week against the Raiders, I think he might have a chance to have some surprises here. But just because of how the Baltimore Ravens play in M&T Bank Stadium, I can't go against the Ravens, unfortunately. So give me the Ravens to win this one, to go to 7-3 and have the Bengals dropping to 4-6. Stars, welcome to Munich, Germany. We have an NFL international game between the New York Giants and the Carolina Panthers. Please get to the chopper. Get me out of this hellhole. Yeah, sorry, Germany. We wish we could have sent you a really good football game, but unfortunately, you're going to get 2 of the worst teams in the league right now. And the Carolina Panthers, hey, they got a win last week. Bryce Young, after everything he's gone through, it was nice of him to get a win against the New Orleans Saints, but the New Orleans Saints are just not a good football team. I don't think the Panthers really are going to really wow anybody in terms of what they do in the second half of the season. I think they're just gearing up for the inevitable when Bryce Young eventually gets traded off somewhere else, probably for mere pennies if we've seen how the last 2 years worth of quarterbacks that we've had drafted have gone. But they're going to they're hosting the New York Giants, which, yeah, the New York Giants are the New York Giants. They are just not a good football team in general. But this is this is one of those games where I have to go with my tie rule here, because neither one of these two teams really has anything that would make me go with one over the other. They're both pretty bad. I mean, these are two really lackluster teams in general, and nothing really that I've seen so far has made me go, oh, I have a good idea of who's going to win this one. The one thing I'll say with the Giants is that they have a good running back in Tyrone Tracy, who's done pretty well over the last couple of weeks. The defense is still really good. Dexter Lawrence is still there at the top of it, you know. The Carolina Panthers, like I said, they got a big win last week to build some confidence for Bryce Young, but I mean, there's not really much there for him to go to now at this point. So really, it's a hard game for me to choose in general. If I had to pick one, I'd probably say the New York Giants, but this is where I'm going to use my tie rule here. I'm going to give myself a point for this week because I just can't decide between one or the other. So I'm going to say it's a tie. The New York Giants, Carolina Panthers, both at 2-7-1. So take that for what you will. So next up, we've got another game here with two rookie quarterbacks going at it. Drake May and the New England Patriots traveling to Chicago to take on Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. The Bears have not looked pretty good since losing that game to the Commanders. Last week against the Cardinals, they really struggled in Arizona. But the New England Patriots really have been struggling too. But then again, here's the difference though. Drake May has nobody really to throw the ball to at this point. I mean, Drake May is doing the best he can under the circumstances. And I think last week showed a lot of promise with him as the future quarterback for the team. They just got to build a team around him. The disappointment so far has been with the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams is doing the best he can, but at the same time, like, he's got a stacked offense to work with, and yet last week they did nearly next to nothing, and it's just like it just feels like the Chicago Bears are just waiting for the season to end at this point so they can say, Matt Eberflus, get the hell out of here. We're gonna go try to get somebody who can properly train Caleb Williams to be the future, to be our franchise quarterback finally. And it's not really Caleb Williams' fault. The dude is doing everything in his power to try to save this team as much as he can, but like, it's just the coaching right now. It's really bad right now for the Bears in general. Now, with that said, though, because Drake May really does not have a whole lot to work with here, the best player for the Patriots offense is Ramondre Stevenson. And even then, they still found a way to lose that game to Tennessee last week. So, I mean, the Bears, I think, should win this game. I think having the home crowd there, and I think Caleb Williams has shown more than enough potential to get the Bears over the hump, get them back on track here. So this could be one that could get sloppy, but at the same time, I think I'm going with the star power that the Chicago Bears have. I think they have enough there to get a win, to give a win over New England. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Bears in this one. Give me the Bears to go to 5-4, the Patriots to drop to 2-8. So next up, we have the Buffalo Bills versus the Indianapolis Colts, formerly of the old AFC East before the 2002 realignment. Of course, the Bills used to go down to Indianapolis twice every year, but of course now that's completely changed in general. And let's start with the home team, the Indianapolis Colts. Look, they're just a cluttered mess right now, and it's not really just because of Anthony Richardson, because we saw what happened when Joe Flacco became the starter and played against the Minnesota Vikings. They looked pretty bad. They did not look like a really good football team. I think we need to center the attention on Shane Steichen as the coach, because just like what happened at the end of last season, why is Jonathan Taylor sitting on the sideline? Like, why is Joe Flacco going to Tyler Granson in this game instead of running the football, which had been working up to that point? The third and fourth down the last third and fourth down the Colts had in that game, that's what cost them that game, because they were running the ball pretty well up to that point, and then all of a sudden in the third and fourth down plays of that drive, they just didn't do anything. They just couldn't get as they tried throwing the ball. Like, where's Jonathan Taylor? Like, why is your star player sitting on the sideline? Why is he not on the field when you're trying to win a close game? And of course, they don't get the fourth down conversion. They turn the ball over, and guess what happened after that? Minnesota immediately scores a touchdown to seal the game. So yeah, the Colts are a mess overall, and it doesn't help that the Buffalo Bills are coming to town. Now the Bills had a thriller last week, but hey, Tyler Bass kicked a 61-yard field goal attempt after missing a couple of extra points in that game. Boosted his confidence up here, and it just continues to show that the Buffalo Bills are not dead just yet. And I think they will go into Indianapolis, and I think they will easily beat the Indianapolis Colts pretty easily. I think the Colts are just such a cluttered mess right now. Buffalo, I think, can really dominate this team overall and not really give them much of a chance in general here, because I just think they have the better overall team right now. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills to win this one, giving the Bills to go to 8-2 and the Colts to drop to 4-6. So next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville came back against the Eagles, but in the end, it wasn't enough. It's like that scene from South Park where they're doing the news and the teacher's just like, and the teacher's just like, well, we're going to shut you guys down, and Kyle's just like, well, we did our best, and then he's just like, well, I guess your best wasn't good enough, because that's pretty much what happened against the Eagles. Like, they tried hard in the second half to really go in there and try to upset the Eagles, and had a chance to do it because mostly Nick Sirianni is really, really stupid when it comes to some of the decisions he made. Like, we'll get to the Eagles eventually, but it's just, you look at some of the things that they were doing, and it's just like, what are you guys doing? Like, why are you doing this? Like, what? Like, did somebody really piss you off on the team that you're making these decisions? But they go into a game against the Minnesota Vikings, who had a win against the Colts. I mean, it was mostly because of Indianapolis stumbling over their own feet in general. Even the Minnesota Vikings themselves were not that great. Sam Darnold had a couple of critical interceptions during the course of that game, had a fumbled ball that was returned for a touchdown for the Colts defense. So they're not that team that everyone thought they were when they were 5-0. They're still a team they're still a team right now that's kind of like in that same pattern that they were in 2016 and 2003 when they were starting off undefeated, and then all of a sudden they just completely started falling off the face of the earth. But here's the thing. The Jaguars right now, I think, are really just, I think they're trying to get going when it's way too late to do so. Because it's mostly just garbage time stuff for the Jaguars right now. Even though they've been playing well late in games as of late, it hasn't been enough to seal wins in general. And I think the Minnesota Vikings are trying to prove to everybody that the first 5 weeks were not a fluke. We are still a really good football team, and we got to prove it against this Jacksonville Jaguars team, who needs a win to keep themselves alive at this point. Because another loss like this, and I think Doug Peterson probably gets axed out of his job in general. I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. If it doesn't happen during the season, it's going to happen as soon as the season ends, because right now the Jaguars are struggling right now to really pull together, and the results have spoken for themselves so far. I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going with the home team. I'm going with the away team, the better team in general here. So give me the Vikings to go to 7-2 and the Jaguars to go to 2-8. Following that, you got a matchup between the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs, and last time these two teams met, the Broncos finally broke a streak of nearly 8 years without winning a game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, it was Russell Wilson who did it in that game in late December last year, and so yeah, now it's Bo Nix going to Kansas City, facing off a team that is very much undefeated. And the Broncos have been very much a mixed bag in general, too. They have been a team that's been kind of, like, 1 week they'll look pretty good, and then the next week or so they're just not really able to hold it together. I think last week really showed a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B of what the promise of column A being what the promise of Bo Nix does with that play that he had, basically the Philly special, except in Denver, which actually got them close to tying the game, getting back in the game at some point. But then after that, Baltimore just completely blew them out at that point. And then you have those weeks where it's just kind of like, where's that team that was looking pretty good early on? Where's that team that swept Tampa Bay at the beginning? Is when they did. Where's that team that came in and faced up and beat up a pretty good, what we thought was a good Raiders team. I mean, they beat up on the Saints, but then again, a lot of their wins overall have not been against very good teams when you really look at it. But they're sitting at 5-4 right now, and 4-5 right now. Excuse me. I'm sorry, they were 5-4. I'm just kind of confused right now, but they're 5-4 right now. But they go into Kansas City, who is still undefeated. They're sitting there at 8-0 after an overtime thriller against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, despite all their problems that they have right now on the wide receiver front, gave Kansas City everything they could. And the only reason they didn't win that game is mostly because some people will argue that it's because Todd Bowles decided not to go for two to try to end the game there, but even then, it still wouldn't have been out of the realm of possibility that Mahomes would have gotten into range for Harrison Butker to kick the game-winning field goal. But then the fact that Baker Mayfield knew as soon as the coin toss went in favor of the Chiefs, it was over. He wasn't getting the ball back, and sure enough, what ended up happening? They drove the ball down the field, touchdown, game over, Chiefs winning. And I don't expect that to change this week. I think the Chiefs. I think this will be the week where we finally start to see the Chiefs in general becoming the Chiefs that will eventually be competing to become a three-peat champion in February. And it's like they're getting Travis Kelce more involved. The running game has gotten really good. I mean, they have long, sustaining drives in that game that really kept the Buccaneers on the sidelines and kept Baker Mayfield on the sidelines from getting anything going. I mean, Patrick Mahomes got injured, and it looked like a really bad injury that could have changed the whole dynamic of the AFC playoff picture in general. Like, Buffalo and Pittsburgh and Houston were probably salivating when they saw Mahomes getting injured, and then when he came back, it's just like, fuck. Like, it's just like, and of course he leads them on a touchdown drive after that. So yeah, never count the Chiefs out, and I'm not going to say the Chiefs are going to lose this one. I just can't do that right now. So I think the Chiefs will win this one. They should be getting pretty close to sealing the division. I don't know how it goes right now, but then again, maybe not, because the Chargers are still winning. But I'm going to say the Chiefs are going to win this one. If they're not going to get it in the next couple weeks, they'll be very close. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in playoff securing area until around Thanksgiving. I would not be surprised if that happens. But give me the Chiefs to stay undefeated, go to 9-0, and the Broncos dropping to 5-5. And speaking of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they are next on the list against the San Francisco 49ers, which 49ers, not a good start to the season overall. Christian McCaffrey did start practicing again this week, so we don't know for certain if he'll be ready to go on Sunday. I'm going to make a prediction and say that he probably will go, just by the fact that everyone was waiting for this particular week to do it. And I wouldn't be surprised if he went. But, of course, San Francisco has been struggling early on. They've had a couple wins here and there, but then again, they haven't been really significant wins in general. I mean, the last win they had was against the Dallas Cowboys. Look at how they are this year. But Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield's doing everything in his power to keep this team together. And unfortunately, they're just really struggling to keep it together. I mean, they just can't sustain wins in general here, and it's just saying because Baker Mayfield really is playing some of his best football in general right now. I mean, he's the main reason why the Buccaneers are staying competitive, but they just can't seal the wins when it matters the most. And I don't think that they're going to have a lot of help with that this week. Because of the situation that they have in terms of the wide receivers. Their defense is playing okay, I guess, but if Christian McCaffrey comes back in this game, I think it plays a huge difference in the 49ers just going in there and possibly completely blowing out the Buccaneers. I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be, if Christian McCaffrey doesn't play, I think it'll be a very close game. But I still think they're going to win regardless. I'm going to take the 49ers to win this one, to go to 5-4, and Tampa Bay to go to 4-6. So next up, we have the two teams who made the biggest impacts of the trade deadline, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Washington Commanders. The Steelers sitting comfortably at the top of the AFC North right now at 6-2. Don't know how much longer that's going to last, especially considering the hell schedule they have coming up in the second half here. They have to go into Washington and play one of the hottest teams in football right now in the Washington Commanders. And so, yeah. This is very, very tricky to really call here. I mean, the Steelers have played well enough. They haven't turned the ball over, and even when they have, it's mostly been with fumbles. None of the quarterbacks that they've had for the Steelers have thrown interceptions as of yet. Hopefully that will not be the case going forward. But Russell Wilson definitely showed promise against the Jets and the Giants. But then again, it's the Jets and the Giants. Between the two of them, they have 5 wins over the course of 10 weeks. So take that for what you will. But they have to go into a very hostile territory with the Washington Commanders. This revitalized new life for the Washington Commanders right now. They had an easy win against the New York Giants, and they almost let that game slip away from them. And I've actually seen more people saying the Steelers have probably a better chance of winning this game. I don't know. I just can't see it, man, because this is one of those games where any other time on paper, yeah, Steelers could probably win this game easily. It's a rookie quarterback. But then again, this is one of those games where it's like, last year with C.J. Stroud and the Texans and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Like, those are the games these are the type of games that could cement the legacy of these quarterbacks going forward, as we saw what happened with Mahomes and Stroud. And Jaden Daniels already has a legacy going on his own rights right now. And I haven't seen anything that really make me say Steelers probably could go in there and win this. I mean, I think they'll make it close. I think it'll be a very competitive game in general. Who knows? This could even be a Super Bowl preview if these guys could still hold it together. I mean, I'm not saying that for sure because of how hellish the Steelers' schedule is going forward, but I am going to pick the home team to win this one. I think the Washington Commanders have enough there to get a win, and I think the Steelers will try everything in their power to keep it competitive, but in the end, I think the Commanders just have too much there to really prevent the Steelers from getting a win here. So I'm going to go with the Washington Commanders to win this one. Give me the Commanders to go to 8-2, the Steelers to drop to 6-3. And then the fun times begin with the Steelers, with 5 of their next 6 games being divisional games, which is the first time they'll face people in the division. You got Baltimore, and then at Cleveland, and then at Cincinnati, and then hosting Cleveland again, then Philadelphia, then going to Philadelphia, and then at Baltimore, and then Kansas City comes to town on Christmas, and then the Bengals at home on New Year's Eve or on New Year's weekend. So yeah, these are going to be very, very tough times for me over the next couple of weeks, and it's going to start this Sunday when I probably have to watch this game, and which I will watch this game, and I'll talk more about that at the end of this, so get a preview of what I have planned for this week. But like I said, I think the Commanders will win this one to go to 8-2. Steelers will drop to 6-3. And next up, you got the Tennessee Titans playing the Los Angeles Chargers. Tennessee, you got to win in overtime last week, barely. I mean, you kicked a field goal. Drake May threw a pass that got picked off, and so by default you got the win. So you moved to 2-8, which is really not saying a whole lot in general, but at least it's showing that, hey, Mason Rudolph is winning more games for you than Will Levis. At this point, I think Mason Rudolph has kind of cemented the starting quarterback position. I just think this team needs a lot of help overall, and I really don't think they're going to make much of an impact in terms of like this year, obviously this year, but who knows? They may be one of those contenders looking for one of those top quarterbacks coming up in the draft. But the Los Angeles Chargers, they're going there to SoFi Stadium to play them, and it's a very interesting team. The Los Angeles Chargers are. The Chargers started off 2-0. They look like they look like a team that was really going to make some noise, and then the last couple of weeks they've been kind of mediocre at best. They lost 3 out of the next 3. They beat teams like the Denver Broncos, the New Orleans Saints, the Cleveland Browns, and as we've seen, neither one of those teams are really that great. And they don't have a good game this week. They have a game this week against a team that's not that great in the Titans, which, I mean, honestly, obviously means what you think is probably going to mean. But I mean, I don't know. I think but overall, when you look at both of these teams, I think the Chargers still are the better team overall. The running game has been really good with J.K. Dobbins, and really pulling his own weight here. Justin Herbert's been playing very well. Ladd McConkey is a nice rookie wide receiver for them. Quentin Johnson is really playing very well. The defense overall is coming up big when it needs to. It's a really stable football team. I think they can easily get the W in this one to go to 6-3. And in terms of the Tennessee Titans, I think he can make it close, but even then, I don't think it's going to be enough to really get over the Chargers in general. So give me the Chargers to go to 6-3, Titans to drop to 2-9. So next up, you've got the New York Jets going up to Arizona to take on the Arizona Cardinals. And who would have guessed the Arizona Cardinals would be leading the NFC West right now? Who the hell saw that coming? But they're leading it right now. They're right there. They're right there with the Rams. The 49ers are just kind of sitting in limbo, and the Seahawks right now. Seahawks are one of those teams that I don't think really has an identity yet. But the Cardinals have played very well over the last couple of weeks. I was actually really surprised at how well they've been playing. But then again, they've had those brief flashes where they've shown promise of what they could be, but they just haven't been able to win games. Like they had that great first start of the year against Buffalo, and then Buffalo won that game. They did pretty well against Detroit. They had some brief flashes of promise between the Lions and the Commanders, but ever since that game against the Chargers, they have done very well. I mean, this is a team that beat the Los Angeles Rams in their home. They went to San Francisco and beat the 49ers, and then they won a close one against the Chargers. And I think it's because the offense overall is getting better. Like, James Conner has been such a big part of that offense. Kyler Murray is showing what he can do. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a great weapon for Murray to throw to. They got better on the defensive front with the addition of Baron Browning. They are making a push for the postseason, and I think they're in a prime position to do that because their schedule overall coming up doesn't look too bad in general, especially with the game coming up against the New York Jets, which don't take the Houston Texans as a sign that things are going to be changing for the better. I still think this is a very cluttered team in general, and I think this is a game that could easily backfire for the Jets in general, to put them back to where they were before that game against the Texans. Like, this is a team. Like, if I'm picking between the Jets and the Cardinals, I think the Cardinals are in better position to go into this game and win it because they have a better structure with the running back situation. The offense is getting better as the weeks go on. The defense is getting stronger. I think they'll have a really good time of knocking down Aaron Rodgers and the Jets from getting any traction going. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Cardinals to win this one. Give me the Cardinals to go to 6-4. Jets drop to 3-7, essentially pretty much ending whatever hope their season had left. Speaking of teams that have their playoff hopes quickly dashing away, you've got the Philadelphia Eagles going to Jerry World to take on the Dallas Cowboys. And the Cowboys, it's pretty bad right now. Really bad. Really, really, really bad. You lose badly to Detroit. You go to the bye week. You lose badly to San Francisco. Mike McCarthy, I don't know what the hell he was doing against Atlanta, but yeah. And on top of that, no Dak Prescott for at least 4 weeks now, so that's pretty much half all this month now. And the earliest he could probably come back is the Thanksgiving game against the New York Giants, but even then, that's not even a guarantee anymore because of how badly they have played at AT&T Stadium. And this game doesn't help when you have a Philadelphia Eagles team that is playing pretty good, despite the fact that their coach Nick Sirianni makes really, really questionable decisions, especially after that game against Jacksonville. Like, the decisions he made in that game made absolutely no sense whatsoever, and yet they still found a way to win because Saquon Barkley is basically holding that team together. And yeah, he's proven that he was the thing that was holding the New York Giants to any sort of relevancy whatsoever, because look at what they've become now. And yeah, they're going into Jerry World where the Cowboys have struggled. And I mean, on paper this should be all Philadelphia Eagles, but we know how crazy these divisional games can get. But even then, I mean, the Dallas Cowboys are starting Cooper Rush, for God's sakes. They'd rather start Cooper Rush than Trey Lance, the guy they traded all that money for from the San Francisco 49ers. Like, why don't you give Trey Lance some opportunities to go in there? Why don't you just do that? But no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and put Cooper Rush in there because then we got to go up to Lincoln Financial and play the Washington Command. Oh no, I'm sorry. I've got the wrong team here. Like, I'm stumbling right now. I don't know why, but I'm looking at the Philadelphia Eagles schedule. I'm sorry, that's my fault. Philadelphia plays Washington next Thursday, so that's what I was saying before. But take a look at the Dallas Cowboys schedule going forward after Philadelphia. A Monday night game against Houston. Then they go to Washington to play the Commanders on the Sunday before Thanksgiving. Then they play the Giants. Then they play Cincinnati. Then at Carolina. So there are not very many games for the Cowboys to win here. And I think Philadelphia overall, despite all their problems with Nick Sirianni, I think they will find a way to win this game. I can't imagine Cooper Rush going in there and giving the Eagles an upset win. I just can't figure that. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Eagles to win this one, to go to 7-2, and the Cowboys to drop to 3-6. Let's get to the Texas team that actually could play for something later on down the road. We've got essentially my dream prediction for the Super Bowl this year. A Sunday Night Football matchup between the Detroit Lions and the Houston Texans. Texans, little bits of concerns, especially after the Jets game, but I'm not giving up on them. I still think they're a team that can still hold it together. I think they're going to have the advantage of having the home field advantage this week. But you're going up against arguably right now the best team in football, which is the Detroit Lions, who have found ways to win games any way they can, and they have shown that they are trying to prove that last year was not a fluke. They are going to try hard as hell to contend to be in the Super Bowl come February, something they have never done before. And this is a very interesting game. On paper, the Lions should probably win this one because they have been playing so well. And I wouldn't be surprised if they won this game, but I just have that gut feeling in my that I can't just get away that the Texans will be there and that this could be a Super Bowl preview. And I have the Texans right now. Like I think this is a get back game for them. I think having them being at home instead of in Detroit, I think that will benefit them greatly here, and I think they will find a way to win this game. And C.J. Stroud, he's been struggling in the last couple weeks in general, but I think this is the game where he gets back and he shows everybody that, hey, last year wasn't a fluke. These last couple weeks have not been as rough as we think they are. I think they go into this game. I think they go in there, and I think they go in and upset the Detroit Lions. Just my thinking there. I'm just going with the fact that it's home field advantage. They were 5-1 before that game against Green Bay. They were a good football team. They were scoring many points in those games. I think they go in there and prove to everybody that, hey, we can tangle with anybody else in this football. It's anyone else in the NFL, and I'm gonna go ahead and give them to predict them to have a win here. So give me the Houston Texans to win this one to go to 7-3. I think the Lions will have their second loss of the season, going to 7-2. It'll be a close game, and like I said, it's my dream Super Bowl matchup, and so I'm gonna take it for what it is. But then again, we all know it's probably going to be Kansas City and maybe even Detroit. So maybe one of those. So at least one of those teams will be there come February. It looks like, but who knows? We'll see what happens as the season goes on. And finally, we have the Monday Night Football matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the Los Angeles Rams. And boy, talk about two teams who are going in completely opposite directions. The Dolphins, Tua is back. He's been back. They still haven't won games though, not because of him in general, but just the fact that the defense has really been struggling as of late, and they've been in games like they've scored 27 points in the last 2 games alone, but yeah, it's just the fact that they can't hold the lead together, and they've lost by field goals in each of the last 2 games, and the fact that they're going into a place where the Rams right now are getting better as the weeks have gone on. They've won 3 straight after starting the season. 2-4. I think they were 1-4. Excuse me, 1-4. They went on the bye week and then they reel off these wins. They beat the Raiders. They beat the Vikings. They beat the Seahawks in overtime. Their schedule is very favorable going forward, and they're getting their pieces back. Cooper Kupp is back in the lineup. Puka Nacua is back in there. Jared Verse has done a pretty good job filling that void that Aaron Donald left when he retired last year. The Rams are slowly but surely putting it together at the right time, and I think they will have enough there to win this game in general. I think they'll go into this game with a lot of expectations because they're on this 3-game win streak. I think they're getting better and better as the weeks have gone on. Miami right now, I think, is struggling. This is pretty much every game at this point for them is just a must-win, and I think if they lose this game, the season's pretty much over and done with here. Scratch it off. Go ahead and get prepared for next season. But I'm going to go ahead and take the Rams to win this one. I think the Rams right now are playing with house money right now. I think they will be the better team going into this game. So give me the Rams to go to 5-4. Dolphins dropping to 2-7. So just to recap my Week 10 predictions, I have the Ravens over the Bengals. I have a tie for the Giants and Panthers. Bears over the Patriots, Bills over the Colts, Vikings over the Jaguars, Chiefs over the Broncos, Falcons over the Saints, 49ers over the Buccaneers, Commanders over the Steelers, Chargers over the Titans, Cardinals over the Jets, Eagles over the Cowboys, Texans over the Lions, Rams over the Dolphins. So, that's going to wrap up this episode of the NFL Network for this week, and I think this Sunday I'm going to do a live rewatch of the Commanders and Steelers game. just because I don't think there's going to be any significant news this week, with the biggest news story being obviously the election, and I'm just at the point now where I don't really want to think about it. So the NFL game on Sunday will give me a nice little distraction from the stuff that's going on right now. So that's going to probably be an episode of the Reviewing Network Live this week that I might do. So we'll see how the week goes, but go ahead and check that out on Sunday. But in the meantime, if you like what you see and you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and hit the like button, the subscribe button. Check out some of the other videos I've done here. Check out my last rewatch of the Steelers and Giants game. And with all that said, I will see you guys next week. So thanks for watching and listening. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.